welcome everybody. I think more people are probably still going to stream in, but welcome back for our second week with Dr. Jeanine Brown. If you weren't here last week, she's a professor at Bethel, has been there for many years, and she's going to talk to us a little bit more about how we read scripture in its full context and the genre, all of those kinds of things. So hopefully last week if you were here, you had a good time, and we will get started again with week 2.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. I have a bit of a cold, so I have things to suck on, and I have water and I have Kleenex, so I'm all set. Hopefully I won't cough into the microphone, which is also here to help me project. So I'm doing okay, I think. Well, this week we're moving from Old Testament to New Testament to try our hand at Philippians, a book maybe you are familiar with. I love the letter of Paul to the Philippians. It was a book I studied early on in my college days. I was with University Christian Fellowship, and our first year of, so when I became a Bible study leader in my second year, at the end of the first year we went off to Cedar Campus in Upper Michigan and did a whole week of study around Philippians. And I was given the little commentary, the first commentary I ever had on Philippians by Ralph Martin, little Tyndale series, great commentary. And about 5 years ago I was asked if I would write the Philippians commentary for the Tyndale series, which came out in 2022. So it was lovely to kind of turn the corner, not to replace his, but to add to that kind of history of interpreting the text for a very readable kind of audience. Well, the audience wouldn't be readable, but the commentary would be more readable. So I loved that work. That was really fun. So it's easy for me to choose Philippians as the place we're going to land tonight. We're going to try out some of the things we talked about last week on Philippians. So the things we talked about last week. We talked about 3 interpretive values or lenses, 3 things to pay attention to. So I'm going to see if you can remember what they are. It doesn't have to be in the same order as mine, doesn't matter. We pay attention to genre, what kind of thing we're reading, right? Last week a narrative, this week a letter. Second thing?
Literary context.
Literary context, context. We're going to just have another 4-chapter thing we're reading, so we're going to be able to read at least half of it this week. But it's easier to read shorter things than longer, but as I mentioned last week, if we pick up a novel, we're really not, we don't have a problem finishing it. We read. We know how, even if we know how to read, we like to read, we will read whole things. Third. Is it characters? Yeah, so I'm like the historical context of what's going on, maybe, if I could put it there. Characters fit in literary context last time around, but they also, Ruth was a Moabite, we didn't know what a Moabite was, right? Or kind of how that fit in with Israelite history, that kind of thing. So I'm going to take that as paying attention to historical setting. So we're thinking about that. Genre, literary context, historical setting. We're going to do those kinds of things in Philippians this week. So first let's think about genre. What is it we're reading when we open Philippians? I think in one sense we're in really good shape when we open a New Testament letter because we've written letters before, or we've received letters, or at least if you're a little younger, emails. The art of letter writing is kind of debated whether that's kind of going away or not. I love it when I get a nice letter from somebody. It's not very often. But it's also the case that ancient letters weren't precisely identical to what we have as contemporary letters. So we're going to talk a little bit about the form of letters and then also the purpose of letters, which have similar kinds of purposes, as we will see, to contemporary letters. Ancient letters had this basic kind of form. All these parts can be subdivided further, and people like to study these things ad nauseum. But generally speaking, opening greetings, where we hear both about the writer of the letter and the recipients, kind of like in the opening of an email. You just find out who the letter is from at the end of the letter. Then a Thanksgiving section or a prayer section, well wishes. That was part of an ancient letter as well. And then the body of the letter, which could be as varied as the body of a letter today. You write a letter for a particular purpose, to communicate maybe news or to encourage somebody. I remember when I went on a sabbatical to England for 5 weeks away from my 10 and 12-year-old daughters, Kate and Libby, and Tim was home with them. Lord bless him, he did an absolutely fabulous job. They were alive when they came over to visit me 5 weeks later. That was really good. No, he did a great job as a dad. And I wrote them each a letter before I left, not because I was planning to not come back, but just because I felt like that this is the longest I'm going to be away from them. I wanted to have a letter in case something would happen. But I didn't write it, it wasn't terribly morbid, but it was a love letter to my daughters. Very particular purpose. Very different from an email I just sent to my students on Tuesday for my distance course. It feels very different. So the body of the letter is as varied as the purpose you have for the communication.